Have you ever put together a puzzle? How fun would it be if you only had one puzzle piece? Or what if you had a whole bunch of pieces, but you never fit them together? They just sat there in a big pile on your table. Don't you love that feeling when you are looking and looking for the similar parts of a puzzle piece and they fit together just perfectly? And what about when you find a missing piece that you've been looking and looking for a long time? Well, learning about this wonderful world we live in is a lot like trying to fit puzzle pieces together. And learning gets really fun when we start making connections between things that we are learning. Would it be as fun to build a puzzle if a grown-up handed you each puzzle piece and told you exactly where it goes? The fun is in the searching and fitting pieces together, isn't it? When you make those connections, you might even feel like Archimedes. He was trying to figure something out, kind of like putting a puzzle together. And one day he found the missing puzzle piece he had been looking for a very long time while he was sitting in his bathtub. And he got so excited that the story says he jumped out of the bathtub and went running down the street shouting, "Eureka! Eureka! I've got it!" And he was so excited, he even forgot to put on his clothes. Now, I hope you will always remember to put on your clothes before you go running down the street. But that kind of excitement about making your own connections in learning describes the kind of learning that I hope each of you will have. First, we're going to start gathering puzzle pieces, and that's going to take some time. And when we have enough, they're going to start fitting and connecting together until we start to see things about our world we never saw before. So, how are we going to do this? I would like to invite you to join me on a grand adventure, a tour around the world. Now, we aren't going to travel on a jet plane where we rush from destination to destination and miss everything in between. Not at all. We're going to climb aboard an imaginary little train and leisurely make our way through all the countries of the world. I love this painting because that's how I see our journey together. Do you see the little girl down in the corner of the painting? She's watching this little train chugging through the beautiful countryside and pasture lands. I wonder what she's eating. Now, the fun thing about our train is if we see something along the way, we can just stop the train and get off and go explore. Maybe we'll stop and listen to a folk or fairy tale or sing a folk song. Maybe we'll join in a folk dance. Maybe we will meet an interesting person and sit down to lunch and let him tell his story to us or tell us of some great event that happened there. Maybe we'll visit an art museum and look at some of their beautiful paintings, or stop and listen to a magnificent symphony conducted by some of their most famous composers. Maybe we'll meet a writer who will share his book with us, or sit under a tree and listen to a poet. We'll visit enchanted castles and fascinating buildings with stories of their own. But we won't worry one bit about taking it all in the first time we visit. That would be impossible. And we won't worry because we know we're going to come back and visit next year, and the next year, and the year after that, maybe even for the rest of our lives. Each time we visit, it is like we are gathering puzzle pieces, and after a long while, we're going to start noticing pieces starting to fit together and connections being made. So, even though if you look at our travel schedule, it may look like we are rushing because we are only staying in one place for a short time, there's nothing rushed about it. If we only have time for a few things, that's okay. We are just getting familiar with the places so that when we come back, we'll have an idea of more things we want to learn and we'll start to have a few things to connect to. It's like gathering puzzle pieces. Sometimes we'll be able to gather a lot of puzzle pieces, and sometimes maybe only one or two, but we'll keep coming back. So relax and enjoy the journey. You get to decide how much you want to see. I call this tour of the world the rotation schedule. The rotation schedule is like a travel itinerary that makes sure that we will get around to see the whole world. But you know what? If you discover something that you just have to stay a while longer and learn about, that's perfectly fine, because you know who is in charge of this grand adventure? You. I will tell you, I've been going through the rotation for almost 20 years now, and the more I learn, the more things I'm excited to learn about. I have all kinds of puzzle pieces that are fitting together, and so many that I'm still searching for. Something interesting happened when we named BAAH at home. We didn't plan it, but when you look at the first letters of each word, look what it spells. BAAH. Like what a lamb says. Not long before our team noticed that, I had been talking to a friend who shared a term for the kind of learning I'm describing to you, and he called it pasture learning. And I thought, what a perfect term to use here in BAAH for the kind of learning we're going to do together. A shepherd allows his sheep to graze anywhere in the pasture that looks delicious to them, and then they move on to a new pasture. There's a beautiful psalm in the Bible, "The Lord is my shepherd." Have you heard it before? It talks about all the ways that a shepherd carefully tends his sheep. One thing he will do is, before he takes them out to a pasture to feed, he will prepare it and make sure there aren't any toxic or poisonous plants that would hurt his sheep or make them sick or even die. The words are, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies." The table that has been prepared for you to learn from is unlike any table that has ever been prepared for any generation of young people before you. I cannot begin to tell you how privileged you are. Let me see if I can help you see. Cimabue was a great painter who lived almost 700 years ago. When he painted a painting, the whole village would shut down and people would make a grand parade just to gaze at one painting. Today, you can look at more works of fine art in 1 hour for free in your home than the richest kings and queens of yesteryear would have been able to see in an entire lifetime. If you had lived back in the day when great music composers like Bach or Beethoven would perform a great work, you may have gotten to hear it maybe one time in your entire lifetime, if you were lucky. Today, you can go to your phone and listen to the greatest symphonies from around the world play any masterpiece you can think of for free. I can bring Leonard Bernstein's entire New York Philharmonic Orchestra into my kitchen and give him a playlist to play for me while I'm fixing dinner for free. Do you know how few people have had access to books in the history of the world? I read of a wealthy woman in the 10th century who gave 200 sheep, a load of wheat, a load of rye, a load of millet, and several costly furs for one copy of a German monk's writing. You can instantly pull up any work of any great mind from any age, all the great literature, the poetry, the words of wisdom, for free on your tablet or your phone. You are the first generation of young people who has histories written in ways you can understand, so that you can learn the stories of all the nations of the world. You have access to thousands of stories of great lives to learn from and inspire you. You can stand on the shoulders of giants. This is like living in the great harvest time of the world. Others did the back-breaking work of breaking up the clods of dirt and rocks and planting and weeding out in the scorching sun, and you are the ones who get to come along and pluck the ripe, juicy fruit and eat it. In fact, there is practically nothing you can't learn about right from that little device you hold in your hands that many of you are only using to chat with your friends and play video games. I can see Michelangelo and Galileo and Archimedes, that bathtub guy, jumping up and down trying to get your attention. What are you thinking? Are you going to waste all of our hard work? Because of what we have given you, you stand to be the wisest and noblest generation the world has yet seen. With God's help, you can turn our world from a place of misery and war to a place of peace and beauty. What we wouldn't have given to have access to the knowledge that has so freely been given to you. and yet most of you don't even know it's there. It's kind of like Helen Keller saying to her friend, "How can you walk through the forest and see nothing, when I, who cannot see, find so much to interest me?" There's a lot of people who have been preparing pastures for you to feast in. What the world needs are some young people who are hungry to feast on what has been prepared for them. Have you ever heard a saying that says you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink? No one can make you learn. But if you are willing to give it a try and want to, there are a lot of things waiting here that I believe you will grow to love and that will make you happier and make our world a better place to live in. Monday through Thursday, I will meet you at the train station. I call it the Inspiration Station. It will just be a short recording so that you can listen while you're eating breakfast if you want. I'll remind you where our travels have brought us, and we'll offer you some suggestions of some things you might want to explore and give you some travel tips. That will make more sense when you actually hear them. I will also make some connections for you. Have you ever traveled on a plane and had to make connecting flights to get to your destination? The same thing happens if you travel on a train or a bus. Each month, all the places we will visit are connected in some way. I'll remind you of what those connections are so it doesn't feel like we're just crazy traveling all over the place. Your art and music and storytelling classes are going to help give you a better pasture learning experience. If that sounds confusing, don't worry about it. It will just happen without you even knowing it. Then I hope you will get to have a lot of your day open for pasture learning. I hope you will become super familiar with all the resources on the Libraries of Hope pages. There are a lot of ideas of things to learn there. I especially hope you will take time to read and listen to stories from the Forgotten Classics Family Library that you'll find on the top of each page at librariesofhope.com. Here are a lot of golden stories that have traveled hundreds and even thousands of years to reach you. Biblioguides is another travel guide I think you'll fall in love with. There are so many interesting and fascinating book suggestions there, and many of the books you can read instantly on your phone or tablet. Maybe you've been used to having your mom or a teacher tell you what you're going to learn every day, and having to make all these choices may feel kind of scary to you. You may be afraid of making a wrong choice. Doing things different ways always feels weird at first, but I think you'll grow to love it if you'll give it a chance. I love learning this way, and like I said, I'll begin to give you some ideas in our Inspiration Stations time. By the way, your mom and dad are great traveling companions. I hope they are exploring and discovering right along with you. 2 important things to remember. You only have to look at one puzzle piece at a time, and you can't pick up a wrong one. You might start reading a book or listen to an audio and think it's too hard or it just doesn't interest you. Do you have to finish it? No, just put it back and look for another one. Speaking of remembering, let's talk souvenirs. A souvenir is a remembrance of places you have traveled. Souvenirs means remembrances. Have you gone somewhere and brought home some souvenirs? Or maybe your parents or grandparents have traveled and brought you home some souvenirs? Here are some of my souvenirs I've picked up or family members have brought to me from their travels. Well, we will want to keep some souvenirs of our travels this year. We want to remember where we've been. I'll show you what I'm going to do, but if you decide to do it another way, that's perfectly fine, of course. This is your adventure. I bought a 3-ring notebook and found these dividers at Walmart with numbers 1 through 12 on them. There are 12 months in our rotation schedule, so that works great. These particular ones even have a space I can write the topics down for each month to remind me. Each month, I'm going to add things I picked up in my pasture learning time. I'm thinking I might create a page where I can list interesting people I've met. If I particularly like someone, I'll create a separate page about that person and copy things he or she said or taught me, or interesting things that the person did. I like to search the internet for pictures and glue those on the pages. I like pictures a lot. You could even draw your own pictures. I plan on doing some of the crafts and sewing, so I'll take pictures of my creations and glue them on a page. If I get together with some grandkids to do them, I'll be sure they're in the picture too. I love looking at paintings, so when I find favorite ones, I'll print it out and glue them on some pages. This will be a great place to store my maps. It's always so interesting to figure out where the places are that I'm reading about and marking them on a map. After all, you can't have a travel guide without a map. I'm also going to keep a list of books or stories I've read, or books that I want to read sometime here. Sometimes I'll read something in a book and I'll think, I don't want to forget that. So I make a page for that book and copy that part, or at least put enough to help me remember and write what page I can find it again on. In the inspiration stations, I'm going to share some quotes and poems I love that you can use to practice your handwriting and copy them or memorize them. I can either put these in my souvenir book, or I actually have some separate journals I like to keep a lot of my favorite quotes and poems in. Whenever I'm feeling a little down or discouraged, reading these always gives me something good to think about instead. These are things I've thought of. What else might you put in your souvenir book? This could be a place you could keep recipes from your cooking class. Maybe you could even glue in some pictures of you and your family or friends eating the food. What else could go there? You'll have to think about that. If you keep some kind of souvenir notebook at the end of the year, you'll be able to look back at all the things you've learned. Look at all the puzzle pieces you've gathered, and you're just getting started. You might decide to change how you hold on to things next year, but I do think this first year around the World's Souvenir Album will become a treasured keepsake. And now one last thing. There's a saying that says, love isn't love until you give it away. Having someone to share these experiences with will make it all even more wonderful. So tomorrow, we'll talk about friendship circles. Until then, bye-bye.